Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to this Techstrong learning experience brought to you by Precisely. My name is Cody, and I'm the host of Techstrong Learning, and we have an exciting presentation ahead. Before we get that ball rolling, I do have just a couple of housekeeping notes I'd like to cover. First, today's session is being recorded, so if you miss any of our discussion, perhaps you'd like to rewatch or maybe share with a friend. The on-demand recording will be made available shortly after we conclude this session today. If you'd like to engage with us, there are a couple of options for you to do so. The first of which is on the right side of the screen. It is the chat tab. I'd like you to start warming that up for us right now by letting us know from where you are joining us today. I know we have a global audience, so we want to get a feel on where everyone is from. Now, if you do have any questions for our panelists, we want you to direct those to the Q&A panel directly to the right of that chat tab. It just helps us keep organized. Finally, before we close out, we will be giving away 4 $25 Amazon gift cards, so be sure to stick around for the duration of our conversation today. Our topic is 5 reasons mainframe and IBM I observability is critical for IT. And I'm joined by Ian Hartley, Senior Director of Product Management at Precisely, and Bill Hammond, Director of Product Marketing at Precisely. Ian and Bill, thank you both so much for joining me today. Bill, would you like to go ahead and take it from here?
Thank you very much. And thanks everyone for joining today. What I wanted to cover up front is what we're going to talk about. So the agenda. I'm going to spend a little time speaking about the difference between monitoring and observability. Those are 2 very related concepts, but they're slightly and importantly different in certain ways. And then a little bit of a kind of a highlight on how root cause analysis plays into this whole observability issue. And then I'll hand it over to Ian, and he'll give you some more detailed look, really, at how observability is critical for your mainframe and your IBM I systems as well, because of all the important and critical data that lives on those systems. And then we should have time at the end for several questions. So with that as our preamble, we'll go ahead and get started here. But as I mentioned, I wanted to talk a little bit about monitoring versus observability. As I start to see observability be talked about more and more in the marketplace, there's varying definitions, I would say. Not everybody defines it exactly the same way. So I tried to, get the common denominator on the way people are talking about observability as a concept. One of the definitions I liked is the observability being the ability to measure the internal states of a system by examining all the outputs, things like log files and alerts and things like that. But what does that allow you to, how does that open up the capability, or what does it allow you to do? Observability more than monitoring allows you to see what's going on in your systems in a more holistic sort of a way. It allows you better than monitoring can, ways to connect multiple sort of inputs. And as we know, our IT organizations and our IT systems are getting more complex, and things can go wrong, and it's usually really hard to track that down. So observability can give you that look that just simple monitoring, hey, an alert went out. Observability takes that to the next level and tries to give you more of a targeted view of what's actually happening. So that visibility for the people that have to troubleshoot these problems is why observability kind of it's higher level than monitoring is critically important. So a couple of points here just to differentiate even further. So monitoring is an action you take, and that means you've got a monitoring, whether it's part of a product or a separate monitor kind of product that I'm looking for, and I'm basically tracking usually against certain highs and lows, and I've out of compliance with something. So monitoring is that piece of it that you need to increase the observability of the system. It would be very hard to do observability without monitoring, but raw monitoring isn't in and of itself the same thing. And so when you're doing the monitoring, observability really becomes a piece or a building block on top of monitoring that allows you to, as I said, more quickly diagnose things, get more information, get information in a more correlated sort of way, so that you can understand what's actually happening, and if there's multiple things that are happening at the same time, be able to see that more than if you just monitor and, okay, alert over here, I got an alert over there, but they might be related. So observability is this concept of saying we can take that information and make it more valuable to you or easier to digest. When we talk about observability, what I was struck with as I was doing some research for this was some of the significant, actually tangible benefits that people who are using observability in a powerful way are seeing. A couple of bullets here: 2.1 times as likely to detect problems, very, very quickly, within minutes. So increasing your ability to be able to detect problems faster is important. Over 2/3 of them think that observability is what's helping them resolve issues faster. 69%, for things like system going down or we're having a performance hit, this ability to have observability leads to much better results in there. And then, there's a lot of cost of downtime statistics you can quote or use, but this was one that I felt like was probably was close to reality. Average annual cost of downtime with applications going down 2.5 million versus they're doing this kind of stuff versus 23 million for people that aren't doing it very well. So with all this, it sounds great, right? Observability is a concept that a lot of companies can benefit from, and again, it kind of builds on top of the monitoring framework or foundation to deliver that. So where are we headed with this? Because observability has been talked about for several years by people like Splunk and others out there. ServiceNow uses this phrase as well. The observability of today is probably going to continue to evolve and become more powerful and more user-friendly and all those kind of things. So, when you look at where it's headed, you just see it being used in a more pervasive way. It's going to become more powerful and more, quicker. The information you get is going to come quicker at you. We do believe that it's going to spread out and be not only in your local systems, but be able to deal with, and it does today to a large extent, be able to deal with the typical hybrid cloud environments that everybody is setting up, where data lives in multiple different places, systems live in different places, and again, the observability thing, when you've got systems that are talking to systems in the cloud, and you're trying to figure out where the problem is, and without you might have a monitoring tool on your cloud environment, but you might have also have a monitoring tool on your local environment, and trying to again correlate what's going on there. The observability is going to become part and parcel of the IT infrastructure, just something that everybody needs to deploy, and it's going to really support what the IT operations of the future are going to need. So, big thing that today people talk about is just, boy, if these tools could get easier to use, more intelligence, more of that correlation and those kind of things. Those are what people are hoping as the observability as a concept moves forward. So that's we do think it's not one of these technologies or concepts that's going to start and be replaced by something else. We really feel like observability is something that's going to continue to be refined and used long term into the future. So that was kind of a monitoring versus observability conversation. I just had one other point really that I wanted to make on the observability and how it relates to root cause, because this came up in a lot of literature I read and a lot of opinions that are out there. So, root cause analysis is great. I love this quote. The first rule is there is no root cause. And it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, because what it's really saying was you very, very rarely find a root cause. This one thing is why everything, went nuts. It's usually multiple things that happen to occur at the same time, related to each other, and that when you get to the end of the solution, you realize it's not just one thing that happened. So root cause analysis is really when you talk about why do you do observability, so you can find out what happened or how to fix what happened or be able to identify the problem. But it's probably, I felt like it was an important point to make, that don't expect, root cause analysis to just lead you to one thing. And when you have multiple things interacting with each other, obviously the critical nature of being able to see everything and any help you can get from a product like a concept like observability gives you the ability to, understand these multi-impactful sort of problems. So, finding root cause, because it is so multidimensional, potentially many things happening at once, the volume of data that people are starting to look at, it makes it really, really hard across all these systems to understand that data. Another reason that observability is critical is that it moves you a little bit closer to having the kind of real visibility and the kind of information, not just data, that you really need to solve those problems. In an IT infrastructure, if you're missing data from some of the systems and you're trying to identify root cause where there's multiple actions that are involved, that can make it hard or even impossible if you don't have that data. And the way that the IT infrastructure is today, things are distributed. It's not a single system that's running everything. Systems talk to each other. They talk to the web. They're reaching out to the cloud environment. Remote workers are logging in. It's a very complex distributed architecture that we're dealing with, and it requires visibility into all the different pieces of that if you really want to get true observability for your systems. So that was my little discussion on monitoring versus observability and the subtle but important differences there, and also how that relates to finding the problems and really understanding how to fix something. So with that, I do want to turn it over now to Ian, and Ian's going to talk to you a little bit more about observability specifically for mainframe and IBM environments, and he's got five key things we're going to talk about. Ian, over to you.
Great, thank you, Bill. Really made some valid points in there, which hope will dovetail nicely with this section, because what I'm going to talk about is really 5 reasons which are why you should be including mainframe and IBM environments in your observability strategy, and how it is absolutely critical. And now you've got to consider there are certainly more than 5 reasons and why you should be looking at this, but the 5 that I'm going to give should give you a broad view of why it's deemed to be essential. And remember, you're looking at this webcast because fundamentally, and I assume, that you have a mainframe or an IBM, and you have that fundamentally for a reason. It's part of your IT. And because it is part of your IT infrastructure, it's there also to deliver processing power and value to you and your customers, potentially underpinning vital systems and services that your organization relies on, in effect, to drive revenue. So these environments are definitely important. So with that in mind, let's start with reason number 1, the criticality of the IBM platforms in today's enterprise IT. For many, mainframe and IBM are still essential platforms. They have many processes that rely on their availability and their performance. And they clearly do offer good performance. That's one of the reasons why they're still there. But these environments often remain isolated and off to one side, away from many of what some would call today core IT, web servers and things like that. The IBM platforms sit off to one side. I'll give you a stat around that. I was talking to a customer in our Australia region yesterday, and they said even today on the mainframe, their teams still kind of live by themselves. The DB2 team doesn't necessarily interact too much with the CICS or KICS team, and that's in the context of a an environment in itself, which is by itself. So it's just interesting how these environments are siloed in many respects. And that's not necessarily a good way to approach things today. But that said, many organizations still view these platforms as valuable within their IT stack. Some numbers here on this slide. 90% of companies using mainframes say they are still investing in the platform. Absolutely true. We hear that over and over again. Those organizations that have them, they've been there a long time. There's lots of things flowing over them, and they're very reliant on them. It's a big lift to move away, and yes, some are, but they still need that as part of their core IT. It's an essential piece of kit and offers a lot of value to what they're doing. Over 75% say more than half their core business applications rely on IBM I. Again, still a very important platform in its own right. And 4 out of 5, or 80% of executives, are looking to modernize their mainframe. Absolutely true. There is a lot of modernization, digitalization occurring today as pieces are moved away to cloud, but not everybody is saying, right, turn it off and just put everything in the cloud, because there's still, a lot of footprint there. There's a lot of investment that's already gone into these platforms. It offers, as I said, good value. So these are not going away, at least not for the foreseeable future. We've heard this story many times over the years. Fundamentally, these platforms are here to stay because they do offer great performance and reliability, as well as being embedded in so many systems and services that your business and your customers rely on. So this leads on to reason number 2. Because you have one of these IBM platforms and it's playing a significant role in your IT, you need to get what I deem the right perspective. As previously said, these systems play a part in applications and services that are oftentimes mission critical. And they're also busy environments, often processing hundreds of thousands, if not millions of transactions per day or even per minute. They're very busy machines. And with that comes a lot of expectation, often requirements around availability for every second of every hour of every day, 365 type processing, driving applications that are used by possibly millions of customers that depend and certainly expect to do what they need whenever and wherever they are. We're a very mobile kind of population these days. We all expect to wake up at 3 a.m. and check our bank balance, or even do more than that. But the IBM piece of a typical stack is often just one element in a broader and often more complex system or service. And today, a given application will span multiple technologies, multiple platforms, and multiple environments. There are a lot of moving parts in any given system. So you need broad visibility and at a high level perspective across all areas, not just things like web servers and load balancers. You need to see it all, including the IBM platforms. But in that IT jungle, you must be able to capture what is meaningful, gather what matters, and quickly zero in on what is important. And so we have here reason number 3, relevant information. You have to be able to access what is relevant in order to achieve what is traditionally required for what we call observability. And that really comes down to 3 elements in that mix, which is logs, metrics, and traces. Similar but different information, all coming from different sources potentially, but giving you that holistic view around what's happening or what happened if we're looking at historical data. So you capture these, and if you are doing so, you are on the way to observability for potentially your mainframe or IBM I. And these platforms are probably, in their own right, the best metered boxes on the planet. They generate logs, metrics, and traces simply as part of their DNA. It was baked into what they do for many different reasons, typically for IBM purposes, but over time, we've realized that this is valuable information that can be exploited for the general health and well-being of these environments and things that are running on them. But it is very easy to get overwhelmed by the complexity and literally the sheer volume of information that comes from these sources. And you still need to make sense of that when you actually get that information captured. So getting the relevant information is essential to actually get on your journey with observability, but it's not necessarily as easy as you may think. And so with that in mind, that brings us on to reason number 4, and that is to drive better insights and agility from this kind of information. Because ultimately the name of the game is to make things better. That's improved IT resilience, improved customer experience, and improved effectiveness of your IT teams. Because a given IT team needs the best possible defense against any IT issues. They need to see across all the IT stack, including Mainframe and IBM I, as well as being able to respond as fast as possible when something is identified, driving down those all-important mean time to identification and resolution times. We all need to keep those to an absolute minimum, or not necessarily be bothered with them at all in an ideal world. And to do this, you will need to focus on key performance indicators, or KPIs, capturing enough data to answer questions around things like status, health, and trends. And of course, it goes beyond that. You can even look at it in the context of capacity and performance. Now, the list goes on. But getting good observability across these puts you in a great position to be able to reduce that noise. There's a lot of noise comes from IT these days. And out of that, you need to focus on what is important and what needs your attention. However, one thing that we've heard multiple times from different customers is, and especially those that are operating with these high processing data volumes, those doing hundreds of thousands of transactions per minute, is observing individual transactions, a single thread from end to end, is not necessarily the best approach. And I kind of liken it in a way of looking at for a single blade within a large haystack. It requires a lot of effort and comes with a huge amount of overhead, when really what you really want to know is whether the haystack is about to catch fire. Can you see that little whiff of smoke that means it's about to burn to the ground, as opposed to finding something that's buried deep and you're looking for a single thing amongst all that noise that's going on in that haystack. So again, capturing appropriate insights leads to hopefully improved agility. And this also goes back to the prior reason number 3, around getting that relevant information. And reason 5, you need to cover all the bases. And what I mean by this is that there's no point, for example, ensuring all the windows are secured while leaving the front door unlocked. You have an incomplete solution. It's not robust. You haven't got everything covered. In the context of your IT, you must have every area under surveillance, both from an operational standpoint and also from a security point of view. With resilience top of mind, literally with every IT team that I speak to, it's no surprise that observability is getting significant attention. In essence, your network, service, and security operations centers must have wide visibility across all aspects of IT. Because today, things no longer work in isolation. Everything is interconnected and interrelated. There are many dependencies and consequences directly linked to the performance, health, status, trends, etc. that's coming from your IT. And alongside this, there are increasing demands and pressures from your business and your customers. their expectation levels do not go down, the business pressures do not lessen, they increase. Your data volumes increase, and hopefully your business volume increase alongside that. That comes with a penalty, across more stress and strain across IT to make sure it is working in the right way. And so you need to constantly leverage observability in the correct way and do so with the right tools. And just to underline that, I'm going to give you a real-world example. This is something that we're working on with a leading global bank. I can't say who they are, but they are dotted around the planet. And we're helping them drive towards better observability and improved IT resilience. Now, they manage hundreds of applications, and many of them rely on their mainframe infrastructure, which is significant. They're certainly not moving away from it in any short term in any of their plans. And so they need visibility from literally mobile to mainframe. And they need that to ensure that services used by millions of their customers are running well. Because if they are not, there are many consequences, from loss of customers to things like regulatory fines and penalties. It gets very ugly very quickly and eye-wateringly expensive if anything is not working as it should be. And so this bank is initially focused on card payments, capturing key performance indicators, those KPIs, from across their spectrum of IT. And they're doing this, bringing it together in the context of Splunk. Now, it doesn't have to be Splunk, but they already have Splunk. So they're leveraging that. And on that platform, they're using a tool called IT Service Intelligence, which is a Splunk product. But the principles are the same, getting those KPIs into the right place so you can observe them, observability in action. And what they're doing is crystallizing that into what's known as a glass table, fundamentally a single-page dashboard where they can view from a very high level with a red, amber, green approach for status, really the health of business systems and services that they depend on as a business. In this case, they can answer questions around, are card payments working well? It's green, we're good. It's changed to amber. Something is not working where it should be. It's, kind of hitting those guardrails or breaching a threshold by just stepping out of line, but they can zero in on that very quickly. It all relies on spotting those trends and delivering, results from the metrics that are being fed into this tool to actually allow them to see that as a very high level. And of course, Mainframe is critical to many functions across the bank. And in this case, it's also essential to the card payment processing. And they are using, they're using our IronStream technology to provide real-time mainframe insights delivered into their Splunk environment, which then bubble up into this nice-looking dashboard that they have. The combination of tools allows the bank to easily determine system and service health and whether they need to respond to a situation that may cause disruption. And what we see time and again is the ability to leverage observability to get ahead of issues before your customers even really know there isn't a problem and avoid that problem. You're effectively buying yourself some time, and that's what we should strive to do, eliminate problems before they really blow up and cause damage. And fundamentally, they have a finger on the pulse of their IT stack for card processing. So this gives improved observability that the team can then leverage for essential information, allowing them to have a better high-level view and confidence that that part of the business is working. And so they're looking at migrating that kind of pattern across other business services so they can get the same observability going across the rest of the business. So if something does step out of line, it fails, or even starts to trend in the wrong direction, they can react quickly and efficiently to minimize any impact. So this is the bank implementing and succeeding with observability, putting into practice at least those 5 reasons that I've called out of why it is critical to include your mainframe or your IBM I in observability. So with that, Bill, I think we're going to open the floor for questions.
All right, great, Ian. Thank you very much. That was very helpful. And we do have a few questions here that we've got some time to field. Here's one. I'll go ahead and take it. The question is observability a product that you guys sell? It actually is part of what we deliver in several of our products. Maybe the most direct one that we didn't necessarily talk about today, but a key part of our Precisely Data Integrity Suite is a data observability service. So in that case, we've got, a specific offering. What Ian and I have been referring to, the use case or business problem we've been referring to specifically in this webinar today for you, would really fall under IronStream, which is our product that gets that data off the IBM and the mainframe, so you have all these benefits that Ian just talked about. So, if you go on our website and look for, Precisely Observability, it's not going to be a product that you see, but the IronStream product that gets this data where it needs to go is the, tool by which we can help deliver observability for people, but we don't have, it's not called an observability product necessarily. So that's kind of the answer there, which is kind of a yes and no, but that's the reality. The next one, I'll let Ian weigh in on this after I give you a quick overview, but the question was, you just mentioned Splunk IT Service Intelligence. Is that the only thing it works with, or what other platforms do you support? Notably, we support a lot of other analytic platforms. We can get this data, as Ian was just talking about, into any number of the top analytic platforms that are out there. Splunk, obviously, the one. ServiceNow is a very, very large one that we deal with. Elastic, Kafka, some older ones like Micro Focus, and even Microsoft System Center. So there's a lot of other platforms that we do support, and it does benefit from having not just the data into those platforms from the distributed systems, Windows and Linux and Unix and those kind of things, but also getting the mainframe or IBM data into it. So if you're interested in the exact list of all the analytic platforms we support, you can take a look at our website on the IronStream section, and you'll see it very easily which ones are out there, the ones we're talking about. Ian, anything to add to that, or does that pretty much cover the waterfront?
It does cover the main bases. Yeah, what I will add to that, particularly relevant to today's conversation around observability, if I can say that word, is something that we're seeing bubble up to the top. And we do have integrations into this tool. We may have not publicized it as widely as so far, but Big Panda, designed from the ground up to cut down on the IT noise and allow you to get to things that you should be focusing on. That's its kind of name of the game, what it brings to the table. We have customers leveraging that with our IronStream technology. IronStream for Big Panda, IronStream for Datadog. We can get to these other tools as well, and we're looking at expanding that quite rapidly to many other of these modern analytics type platforms, because customers are turning to using different tools for different reasons, but today they typically have one or two of these that they're using for different things. Again, all with the rationale of observability. They're all trying to do the same thing, keep everything running, lower that pressure environment. But it's interesting how customers are using our IronStream technology to get this type of data to the tool of choice these days. Really all for the benefit to make their lives easy and keep, as I said, the pressure off them.
Good points. Yeah, I think it's important that the audience hears the reality of we're continuing to expand our support on these analytic platforms as the market changes, as new players come in. It's a constantly evolving thing for us, and we're always looking to try to make sure that we meet the customer where their need is, whatever platform they're trying to use. So we try to keep expanding that list. All right, one more question here. And Ian, I think I'm going to have you answer this one. You showed a slide that mentioned IT operations and security. Does observability apply to both of those concepts?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I did do that, didn't I? I did talk about IT operations and security. Short answer, yes. the principles that we talked about, the reasoning we spoke about, observability, obviously we mentioned, absolutely applicable to both IT operations information as well as security information. Fundamentally, it's just data. It's just telling you something different, and the source is different depending on where it's come from, whether that's mainframe or IBM, but it's also whether it's SMF on the mainframe, for as an example, or it's journal data on the IBM. Our IronStream solution can capture all of that, and you can do many different things with it, both for IT operations or for security, or both. You can mix them together, and we definitely have customers that are doing both and mixing those things together. As I said, these environments today are very much interrelated. One thing doesn't necessarily happen in isolation. You have to correlate things together. So it may be a mix of security scenarios. You've detected something, but then you need to pull in kind of operational data to understand more around what was going on there. Was it some kind of data operation or some kind of user interaction that was triggering something unusual, an anomaly that you need to pay attention to? You've got that same kind of noise coming from security as well as from IT operations. What do you need to pay attention to? That's where observability absolutely comes in. So we have solutions across our portfolio that can help with many different aspects of that. So yeah, in short, the answer is yes. It applies to both.
Good. That was the short answer and the long answer. Good job.
It was indeed.
So unless I see any more questions, I would certainly say if you have other questions, or if some come in here in the next minute or two as I'm wrapping up, we will get back to you with answers to those questions. But I just wanted to wrap up and say thank you for your time today. I hope you found some of this information valuable. And again, the last thought I really wanted to leave you with was that Precisely is here to help. And if you've got any questions or concerns, things you'd like to discuss, we're more than happy to have that conversation with you. So again, thanks for your time today. We look forward to seeing you on our next webcast. Thanks.
Awesome. Ian, Bill, thank you both so much for joining me on Techstrong Learning today. It was so much insight brought forth in this brief session, so thank you so much for bringing that to the table today. I would like to remind our audience that this session was recorded. Following this program, you will receive an email with a link to access the recording on demand. And of course, you can find it living on the DevOps website at devops.com/webinars, and just be sure to look in the on-demand section. The 4 winners of our $25 Amazon gift card drawing, they are Itzia F, Patrick S, Som B, and Saria R. So to our 4 winners, congratulations. Keep an eye on your inbox to claim your gift card. If you don't happen to receive that in about the next 48 hours, check your spam folder just in case it gets filtered out. I'd like to thank Precisely for sponsoring our program today, and to everyone still with us, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you spending time with Techstrong Learning, and we want to hear your feedback. So if you stick around for just a minute longer, you will be redirected to a survey. Feel free to let us know what you thought about our program today, or if you have any thoughts for an upcoming program. Either way, we do hope to see everyone at a future Techstrong Learning experience. Have a great rest of your day, and Ian, Bill, thank you again.